Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Senate and Ways and Means Subcommittee on Human Services. Madam Secretary, please call roll.
Senator Canizaro. Senator Dondero Loop. Senator Wynn. Senator Severs-Ganser. Senator Titus. Assemblywoman Anderson. Assemblywoman Dickman. Assemblyman Hafen. Assemblywoman Howdigi. Assemblywoman Monroe Marino. Assemblyman Watts. Assemblyman Yeager. And Chair Gorlow.
And I'm here. Thank you very much. Looks like everyone is here today. We're going to be going over 7 budget closings today. A real quick reminder to everybody, please make sure your electronics are turned off or silenced. Public comment will be available at the end of the meeting after the budget closings. We will start today with budget closing 3150.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good morning. For the record, this is Colby Nichols. I'm a program analyst with the LCB Fiscal Analysis Division. Beginning with the administration budget on page 3 of the closing packet, there are 2 major closing issues associated with this account, both of which are related to additional authority for contract staff. The first recommendation is general fund appropriations of $160,000 in each year of the biennium for costs associated with 2 additional contract staff to provide project management, program evaluation, data analysis, and training and reporting as needed. The general fund appropriations included in this recommendation would allow the Director's Office to contract with 2 additional staff for a total of 640 hours per year at an estimated hourly rate of $125. During the budget hearing, the agency testified that the intent of this recommendation is not to supplant or replace state positions, but to allow the agency to recruit experienced staff as contractors to provide training and education in high-level fiscal administration roles. The agency testified that it had anticipated being able to recruit some recently retired fiscal staff to fill these recommended positions, and indicated that it did not anticipate needing this contract staff on a permanent, ongoing basis. Because the agency indicates that the contract staff would not be needed on a permanent basis, the subcommittee may wish to consider stating that general fund appropriations included in this recommendation are one-time in nature, meaning that the contract costs and the associated general funds would be removed from the base budget for the 25-27 biennium if it wishes to approve the governor's recommendation. The subcommittee also inquired as to the programs the 2 additional contract staff would support, and in response, the agency testified that the recommended contract positions would not support specific programs, but would rather provide training and education on fiscal management for the agency. Additionally, the subcommittee asked how the agency determined a need for 2 contract positions as opposed to 1. In response, the agency testified that the contract authority could be used to hire 1 full-time contractor, but again, as the intent is to recruit recently retired staff, those staff may not be able to or wish to work full-time, and the enhancement was developed using estimates for 2 part-time contract staff. Following the budget hearing, the agency did provide some more information regarding the number of positions in fiscal administration that are currently vacant or have experienced turnover recently. Of the 29 positions that are authorized to provide high-level fiscal support for the agency indicated one of those positions is currently vacant. However, 20 of those positions have had turnover within the last year. The decision for the subcommittee is, does the subcommittee wish to recommend approval of one-time general fund appropriations of $160,000 in each year of the 23-25 biennium for costs associated with 2 additional contract staff?
Thank you, Mr. Nichols. I'll entertain a motion.
I'd so move to recommend approval of a one-time general fund appropriation of $160,000 in each year of the 2023-2025 biennium for costs associated with 2 additional contract staff.
I have a motion from Senator Wynn. Do I have a second? I have a second from Assemblywoman Monroe Marino. Any comments or discussion? Okay, seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Okay, motion carries. Thank you very much. Please go on.
All right, again, this is Colby Nichols with LCB Fiscal Analysis. The second major closing issue begins at the bottom of page 4 of your closing packet. This is continued funding for 2 contract staff for the Office of Minority Health and Equity. The governor is recommending Healthy Nevada funds or tobacco settlement revenues totaling $369,354 over the 23-25 biennium for costs associated with one contract program officer and one contract health program specialist to support the Office of Minority Health and Equity. These are positions that are currently providing support to the office. However, they are funded through grants that are either recently expired or set to expire before the end of the current biennium. The program officer serves as the office's primary outreach liaison, and the health program specialist provides support to the office as well. The intent of the recommendation is to allow the agency to retain the incumbent contractors and to allow them to support the office through the use of ongoing permanent funds through the tobacco settlement revenues. During the budget hearing, the subcommittee inquired how the agency would monitor the impact and outcomes that the staff would have for the office. In response, the agency testified that it understood the need to identify those problems and evaluate the effectiveness. However, they did clarify that the intent of these positions is to provide direct programmatic support for the office. The subcommittee also asked how the contracted staff currently help the office in performing its duties, and the agency indicated that funding and resources to address health disparities are contained within a variety of both state and local budgets as well as non-governmental organizations, and that the office serves as a hub that can evaluate the cumulative impact of these various programs on a statewide level, as well as providing public information and outreach services. The decision for the subcommittee is, does the subcommittee wish to recommend approval of Healthy Nevada funds totaling $182,844 in fiscal year 24 and $186,510 in fiscal year 25 for costs associated with two contract staff to support the Office of Minority Health and Equity, as recommended by the governor.
Thank you, Mr. Nichols. I will take a motion. Oh, question? Please, go ahead, Senator Titus.
Sorry, thank you, Madam Chair. And I'm just curious if we had gotten any information on exactly just holding these contract staff accountable. And it says in our notes that they've attended meetings, town halls, forums, and they've coordinated community and faith-based organizations. And I'm just wondering, you know, if we're holding these folks accountable, how many have they attended? How many people have they actually reached out to? We know that disparity in health, especially among minorities, is so dramatic that I want to make sure that this office is truly accomplishing something and reaching out to folks. And so I don't expect that they maybe have that now, but certainly sending us some information on are they accomplishing anything would be really helpful.
Thank you, Senator Titus. Does anyone from DHHS want to? Thank you. Please go ahead when ready.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the committee. For the record, Marla McDade Williams. I serve as the Deputy Director of Programs for Department of Health and Human Services. Madam Chair, through you to the Senator, we would be happy to provide additional information. Thank you.
Great, thank you, and thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome. Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In response to the senator's question, I don't know what happens in Northern Nevada, but I know that in Southern Nevada, they are active in the community on a monthly basis. They send us emails to attend events, invite us to join them to speak at events, but they are extremely active in Southern Nevada on a monthly basis.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I'd move to recommend the approval of the healthy funds totaling $182,844 in fiscal year 24 and $186,510 in fiscal year 2025 for costs associated with the two contract staff to support the Office of Minority Health and Equity as recommended by the governor.
Okay, I have a motion from Senator Wynn, a second from Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno. Any other comments or questions? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Moving on, Mr. Nichols, thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, this is Colby with LCB Fiscal Analysis Division. There are three other closing items associated with this account. They are contained within a table on the top of page 6 of your packet. Fiscal staff would recommend all other closing items be closed as recommended by the governor and requests authority to make technical adjustments to this budget as necessary.
Thank you very much. Any comments or questions? Okay, I will entertain a motion.
I'd so move to all other items be closed as recommended by the governor and request give staff authority to make technical adjustments as necessary.
Thank you. I have a first from Senator Wynn and a second from Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno. Any comments or questions on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thank you. We will move on to Budget 3060.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, this is Colby with LCB Fiscal Analysis Division. The second budget for today is the Fund for Resilient Nevada, which begins on page 9 of the closing packet. This budget serves as the framework for the allocation of opioid settlement revenues. There is one major closing issue associated with this account, as the governor is recommending reserve reductions totaling $13 million over the 23-25 biennium to fund various statewide projects and grants to public and private entities to address the impact of opioid and other substance use disorders in the state. The spending plan for the tobacco settlement funds is included as an attachment. That's on page 15 of your packet. The initial allocations for the fund were approved at the January 2023 IFC, and the recommendation in the governor's recommended budget is the allocations for the forthcoming 23 to 25 biennium. During the budget hearing, the subcommittee inquired about the evaluation and selection processes used by the agency to determine which project proposals would be funded, and in response, the agency indicated it anticipated managing the Fund for Resilient Nevada in a similar manner to the tobacco settlement funds that are administered by the Grants Management Unit. The agency anticipates using a competitive application process for most of the proposed projects. However, certain elements would also involve the utilization of internal transfers within the various divisions of DHHS. The agency did indicate it considers any potential duplication of funding when evaluating project proposals. If the recommended spending plan is approved, the agency anticipates beginning that competitive application process in the summer of 2023. The subcommittee also asked the agency to provide additional details regarding new activities or programs that are included in the spending plan that were not included in the initial allocations previously approved by the IFC during January. In particular, the subcommittee asked for more information regarding the proposed interlocal agreements with the University of Nevada, Reno's Centers for the Application of Substance Abuse Technologies. In response, the agency testified that the center is a nationally recognized technical assistance and support agency for substance abuse-related issues, and that the agency has an existing relationship with this entity, and that the center received funding from other revenue sources through the Division of Public and Behavioral Health. The agency testified that the intent of these proposals was to aid direct service providers through the provision of training and information about the latest standards of care for substance abuse issues. Additionally, the subcommittee asked the agency to explain why the spending plan did not include any funding related to activities related to goals number 5, which is to implement recovery communities across Nevada, and goal 6, to provide opioid prevention and treatment consistently across the criminal justice and public safety systems. In response, the agency indicated that entities had not yet provided proposals directly related to these two goals. The subcommittee also inquired whether the agency had any interaction with the various law enforcement entities in the state regarding these two goals. The agency responded affirmatively and explained that it intended to use these existing relationships with these, as well as correctional facilities, to help identify areas of need and enroll clients in the department's various programs as they're released from custody. However, they had not yet received any detailed project proposals that would support these two goals. The subcommittee also inquired whether revenues from the Fund for Resilient Nevada could be used to provide support to family members of people who had passed away due to substance abuse. In response, the agency testified that it believed these kinds of supports could be included under Goal 5. However, as previously mentioned, the spending plan does not currently include any proposals under Goal 5. The agency indicated it would evaluate any proposals related to this activity as they were submitted. The subcommittee also inquired about the inclusion of unallocated authority in the spending plan, including how the agency anticipated utilizing the unallocated authority. In response, the agency testified that it had developed the total authority amount that is included in this recommendation by dividing the total projected amount of settlement funding by an estimated 16 years, which results in an estimated annual allocation. Following the budget hearing, the agency confirmed the unallocated authority could be utilized upon determination of any funding gaps or to address any increases in actual contractor subaward amounts once recipients' budgets are finalized. At the top of page 12 of the packet, you'll see there are two options that the subcommittee may wish to consider. The first of which is to recommend this as recommended by the governor for reserve reductions totaling $6.5 million in each year of the biennium for allocations to various public and private entities to address the impacts of opioid and other substance use disorders in the state, which includes the unallocated authority previously discussed. Or option B, which is to recommend approval for reserve reductions of $6.2 million in fiscal year '24 and $6 million in fiscal year '25, and that would be for allocations for identified purposes only, and direct the agency to approach the Interim Finance Committee during the 23-24 interim for any funding requests that are not included in the spending plan that's included in the governor's recommended budget. Option B would not include any unallocated authority.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nichols. We have a question from Senator Nguyen.
More of a comment. There are several of us that had the opportunity to hear some bills presented in Senate Judiciary yesterday. And just to tie this in, there was a lot of opposition to some of these bills regarding fentanyl. And it came down to the inability to incorporate recovery and treatment options within the justice system from a lot of our law enforcement partners. So again, I'd like to highlight that we do have a statewide plan that identifies 7 goals, and that of those 7 goals, it still appears, and I know that it was highlighted by staff just now, that 2 of those goals have yet to have funding awarded, even applied for, and that would specifically be implementing recovery communities across Nevada, and also, second, providing opioid prevention and treatment consistently across the criminal justice and public safety systems. And so I would just remind our law enforcement partners that there are opportunities out there for these programs that would help keep our help with recovery and save lives and have consistency throughout our state when it came to criminal justice and medical and opioid prevention and treatment access. So with that, I would say that. And then I have a question for staff regarding the 2 recommended proposals. It seems that in recommendation A, that this is a very unusual budgeting practice. And I was wondering if that is something that is unusual, or we have other instances where this unallocated authority resides somewhere outside of this legislative body in IFC.
Thank you for the question. Again, for the record, this is Colby Nichols with LCB Fiscal Analysis Division. I would say the standard budgeting practice consistently applied not just for Health and Human Services, but sort of across. Typically, we like to budget for identified expenditures only. I would say it is unusual to include authority, unallocated authority. As for whether there maybe are examples in cases where we've done something similar, I'm afraid I don't have any that I could offer at this time. But I would say generally the state prefers to budget for identified expenditures specifically.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I'd so move to approve the reserve reductions for $6.2 million in fiscal year 2024 and $6 million in fiscal year 2025 for allocations for identified purposes only, and direct the agency to approach the Interim Finance Committee during the 23-24 interim for any funding requests not included in the spending plan in the governor's recommended budget. This option would not include any unallocated authority.
Thank you. Okay, I have a motion from Senator Nguyen and a second from Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno. Any comments or questions on the motion? Okay, seeing none, sorry. I'm so sorry. Speaker Yeager.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair, for allowing me to make a comment. These are much in line with what Senator Nguyen had said. Certainly, the 7 goals are all laudable, and we have a spending plan for 5 of those goals. We heard we don't have any applications yet for 2 of them. And as I express in this committee, I just sure hope that through the process of IFC, perhaps there'll be some more applications. But number 5 about implementing recovery communities across Nevada, I think we did hear that those funds can be used to assist family members of those who have died because of opioids. And I think, to me, that's a piece that's missing so far. We sort of leave those families to deal with this on their own without support. And so I certainly hope we'll see some programming there. And then to Senator Nguyen's point, I think the criminal justice system is very important in this conversation. I mean, those of us who were here in 2017, we We worked on opioids and opioid abuse. There was a real big problem in the state, and I think I'm not going to say we did a perfect job, but we helped constrict the supply chain for illegal opioids. And I think what we saw opioid use go down, but we also saw folks transitioning to other more harmful substances. It was black tar heroin, and now we're on to fentanyl, which is exponentially deadlier. As Senator Wynn said, we have bills addressing that, but we can't forget this piece of treatment. We can criminalize things all we want, but if people don't have treatment options in this community, today it's going to be fentanyl, tomorrow it's going to be something else. And so I would just, obviously I know nobody's applied, but I think it's incumbent upon all of us to make sure that we're talking to our justice partners, our community partners, to make sure that they're trying to access this money. And I would ask HHS to do that as well. We know who these folks are in the community who can provide these kind of treatments. I just don't want to see the same cycle where people are going into jails or prisons because of fentanyl use. They're not having their issues addressed, and they're coming back out. And it's this revolving cycle that we all know costs the state way more money than it costs just to treat the problem. So obviously supportive of this program, but just want to encourage all of us and the agency to do everything we can to make sure, hopefully in the IFC process, we have some applications, some grant applications for goal number 5 and goal number 6 as well. So thank you for the time, Madam Chair. Appreciate it.
Thank you. I believe Senator Severs-Ganser is next.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I agree this is a very important issue, and I've been tracking the numbers. I just want to make everybody aware of the pool of funds, the magnitude of the pool of funds. So across the state, the settlement adds up to, as of, this is from the Attorney General's office, as of revised 3/24, but I think the fund is through, settlements through February 20th, about $350 million. $350 million is going to the state. There's a first cut for attorney's fees, which nets about $289, and of the $289 net after attorney's fees, there's about $177 that goes to the state. So I think it's 43.86%, about 44%, and then there's some more attorney's fees. And in the end, the state has about $147 million to be able to spend through 2038. And so I think there's plenty of room for us to do great work with those types of funds. And there's going to be more settlements to come, I believe. And so I think the 7 goals are where we need to focus, and that we can move the needle with that type of funding, and that the DHHS needs to be focused on that. And I know they've got their state plan, and I'm grateful that they had their state plan to help those who are affected by this crisis. So thank you. And again, the pool of money is substantial, and I do believe we can move the needle and really help a lot of people. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Okay, motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Nichols, and we will now move on to, we have other closing items. Not moving on just yet. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, this is Colby Nichols for the record. There are 6 other closing items associated with this account. They are on a table on page 12 of the closing packet. Other closing items 1 through 3, as well as other closing items 5, we would recommend those be closed as recommended by the governor. Other closing item 4 is a companion decision unit. We would recommend that be closed contingent upon approval of that companion decision unit in the data analytics budget, which we'll be discussing shortly. And then finally, other closing item 6 is a companion decision unit to one included in the administration budget that was approved. So we would recommend that other closing item 6 be approved, as was the companion decision unit. And finally, we would request authority to make technical adjustments to this budget as needed.
Thank you very much. I'll entertain a motion.
I'd so move as,
Sorry. Please, go ahead, Senator Titus.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for your patience. And I apologize, but I really had a question back on attachment A on this, the list of stuff that you've spent the money on, and hearing how much money that we have still to dispense or use. And the fact that we voted on B, so that we will be seeing this at IFC in the future. Excuse me. I'm really concerned that the monies that I saw in attachment A, specifically that $5,000 a year to mirror the EMS services on the records, of overdoses, that database. I'm just really concerned that that's not nearly enough to do that. So I'm just going to put a little suggestion out to our department that's in the room today to make sure that that kind of information and the data on overdose is really available, and that's enough funding to make sure that that is running throughout the state so that we can access that. So thank you for giving me a moment.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, seeing none, I will entertain a motion.
I'd so move to approve the recommendations as read by staff.
I have a motion from Senator Wynn, a second from Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno. Any comments or questions on the motion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Okay, motion carries. Now we'll move on to Budget 3195.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, this is Colby Nichols with LCB Fiscal Analysis Division. The next budget is the Grants Management Unit, and that begins on page 17 of your closing packet. There's one major closing issue associated with this account. It's related to the spending plan for the Grants Management Unit, specifically related to tobacco settlement funds, also known as the Fund for a Healthy Nevada. The governor recommends a spending plan of tobacco settlement funds for the Grants Management Unit budget, totaling $13.6 million over the biennium for allocations to subgrantees. However, there are several discrepancies between the figures that were included in the spending plan and those that were included in the governor's recommended budget, which only included $10.4 million in funding for the biennium. Accordingly, the governor's finance office has transmitted a budget amendment to correct these discrepancies and align the funding in the budget with the figures included in the spending plan as presented to this body during the budget hearing. There's a table in the middle of page 18 showing the recommended allocations. This has not changed from the budget hearing. As you can see there, that spending plan does include $13.6 million in anticipated expenditures. During the budget hearing, the subcommittee asked for additional information regarding the processes used to determine which programs are recommended to be increased, reduced, or eliminated from the spending plan. In response, the agency testified that there are multiple factors under consideration when making these decisions. Those can include changes to programs such as Medicare and Medicaid, the identification of emerging new needs through agency review of data, and an intent to expand local health authorities' abilities to provide services. The agency cited the creation of a new public health district for several rural counties as a primary factor in identifying the need for subawards for public health districts. The subcommittee also inquired about the processes used to alter the spending plan during the biennium, and in response, the agency indicated that the Grants Management Advisory Council is able to submit recommendations to the Director's Office at any time, and that as the budget is established using authority and categories, there is some flexibility in determining how funds could be used within a single category. The subcommittee also asked the agency to provide more information regarding how the funding recommended for public health districts specifically would be utilized. And the agency testified that this funding is intended to incentivize health districts, including that new health district for rural counties, to create sustainable and long-term health programs. The recommended funding would provide resources to the public health districts, which would be allocated based on each individual district's priorities and goals. Following the budget hearing, the agency indicated that it intended to work with each public health district to identify those needs and priorities and would subaward the funding based on those needs. However, the agency was unable to provide an estimate of how the funding would be allocated across those 3 public health districts in the state. There's also some information related to Budget Amendment A230343195. As I've discussed previously, there are several discrepancies between the amounts included in the spending plan compared to those included in the governor's recommended budget. To correct those discrepancies, the governor's finance office transmitted a budget amendment on February 16th, which recommended additional tobacco settlement funds of $1.6 million in each year of the biennium to align those revenues and expenditures in the budget with those amounts included in the spending plan. And I'd just like to note that there are no new programs that are included in the budget amendment when compared to the spending plan as presented by the agency during the budget hearing. The budget amendment is intended to correctly align the amounts that are in the budget with the expenditures identified in the spending plan as presented during the budget hearing. Does the subcommittee wish to recommend approval of the governor's recommended spending plan of tobacco settlement funds of $13.6 million over the 23-25 biennium, inclusive of the $10.4 million that's included in the governor's recommended budget, as well as the additional $3.2 million in funding that is included in the budget amendment as discussed?
Thank you very much, Ms. Nichols. Any questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, I will entertain a motion.
I'd so move to approve the recommendation as read by staff.
Okay, I have a motion from Senator Wynn, a second from Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno. Any questions or comments on the motion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Okay, motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Nichols.
Thank you, Madam Chair. There are 6 other closing items associated with this account. They are listed in a table that begins at the bottom of page 19 and runs over to the top of page 20. Fiscal staff would recommend that those other closing items be closed as recommended by the governor and request authority to make technical adjustments to this budget as necessary.
Thank you very much. Question, Senator Titus.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a question on the transplant center. The Nevada Transplant Institute, we awarded $15 million to them, and that is under that they list that they presented today. And I'm just wanting to make sure that that $15 million, because when we awarded that, the statement was that they would be able to raise the additional funding, and we did that at IFC on October 20th. I'm just wondering if there's any update on that, making sure that they have been able to secure some additional funding, and then that money can be moved forward.
Would the agency like to come up and address that question, please?
Oh, it's a lot of money, and if they're not using it.
Thank you.
Good morning, Good morning, Madam Chair. For the record, Marla McDade-Williams, Deputy Director of Programs, Department of Health and Human Services. Madam Chair, through you to Senator Titus. Again, happy to provide that information. I know that we have executed the subgrant with them, and we intend that everything is going to move forward as they had indicated. But I will follow up. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to make sure, I think it's a critical component to the healthcare delivery in the state, and just wanted to make sure that that money, with that large of sum, they're going to be able to use it. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Okay, seeing none, I will entertain a motion.
I'd so move to recommend closing items 1 through 6 be closed as recommended by the governor and request authority to, and give authority to staff to make technical adjustments as necessary.
And second? Okay, I have a motion from Senator Wynn, a second from Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno. Any comments or questions on the motion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Okay, motion carries. Moving on to budget, which budget are we on? 3203. Wasn't quite there yet. Thank you very much, Mr. Nichols. Please proceed when ready.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As you indicated, the next budget under discussion is the data analytics budget, which begins on page 27 of the closing packet. There are 2 major closing issues associated with this account, both of which are new positions. The first major closing issue is a new biostatistician position for the Nevada 988 program. The governor is recommending a transfer of $84,983 in fiscal year 24 and $112,794 in fiscal year 25. This would be a transfer from the Division of Public and Behavioral Health's crisis response budget for costs associated with 1 new biostatistician position and the associated costs to support the Nevada 988 mental health crisis hotline. The recommended position would perform various mathematical and statistical analyses on program data related to Nevada 988. However, it should be noted that the executive budget did not include a companion decision unit in the crisis response budget to effectuate this recommended transfer. So during the hearing, the subcommittee asked the agency to elaborate on the benefits to the Nevada 988 program should this position be approved. And in response, the agency testified that the Nevada 988 program is more than a hotline, as it's a term that sort of serves as an umbrella term for a variety of behavioral and mental health support programs, as well as the crisis assistance. The recommended new position would help the Nevada 988 program in determining the efficacy of each part of the program, as well as use data to identify additional opportunities for intervention points, with the goal of reducing the number of people who utilize emergency resources to address behavioral health crises. The subcommittee also inquired whether the recommended position is needed to address any specific duties as required by statute, And following the hearing, the agency indicated the position is not needed to fulfill a specific statutory mandate. However, they reiterated that the new position would improve the agency's ability to collect, analyze, and use data to improve the operations of the program. As previously discussed, the governor's recommended budget does not include the companion transfer decision unit in the crisis response budget to fund the costs associated with this position. So during the budget hearing, the subcommittee inquired how the agency intended to fund the transfer that's included in this recommendation. And the agency responded it anticipated submitting a budget amendment for the crisis response budget to fund that transfer, and that those costs would be funded through the transfer of revenues from the state surcharge on commercial mobile communication services. And accordingly, on March 3rd, the Governor's Finance Office submitted Budget Amendment A23-0673165, which adds the companion decision unit to that crisis response budget to effectuate the funding transfer. And I'd just note that the crisis response budget is scheduled for closing by the Joint Subcommittee on Human Services on April 25th. So does the subcommittee wish to recommend approval of one new biostatistician position to support the Nevada 988 program, funded with the transfers of mobile communication surcharge revenues from the crisis response budget? Those transfers totaling $84,983 in fiscal year 24 and $112,794 in fiscal year 25, contingent upon the approval of that budget amendment for the crisis response budget.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, I will entertain a motion.
I'd so move to approve the recommendations as read by staff.
Thank you. And a second? Okay, I have a motion from Senator Nguyen and a second from Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno. Any comments or questions on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Okay, motion carries. Moving on.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, this is Colby Nichols with LCB Fiscal Analysis. The second major closing issue, which begins on page 29 of your packet, is an additional biostatistician position funded through the transfer of opioid settlement funds. As recommended by the governor, this totals $107,767 in fiscal year 24 and $112,487 in fiscal year 25. This would be transferred from the Fund from Resilient Nevada budget, and the position would support the state's opioid epidemic response. However, it should be noted that the costs included in this decision unit do not match those costs recommended in the companion decision unit that was contained in the Fund for Resilient Nevada's budget. During the budget hearing on February 9th, the subcommittee asked the agency to provide more information regarding the benefits to the statewide opioid epidemic response efforts should this recommended position be approved. The agency testified that the position in this recommendation would aid the agency in using data and evidence to identify priorities and opportunities for opioid settlement funding to address the opioid epidemic. Additionally, the subcommittee inquired whether this position was required to fulfill any statutory requirements or goals established in the Fund for Resilient Nevada State's plan. In response, the agency testified that this recommendation was a direct result of a recommendation that was provided by the Fund for Resilient Nevada's Advisory Committee. And following the budget hearing, the agency provided additional information indicating the position would be instrumental in preparing an analysis of the impacts of opioid use in the state for use in future needs assessments in state plans. The position would also assist with preparing reports that are required pursuant to statute, including reports with recommendations on the statewide plan and the needs assessment, recommendations that consider health equity and disparities among special populations in the state. As previously noted, this decision unit, as included in the governor's recommended budget, erroneously includes costs for a position start date of July 1st, 2023. And the agency has confirmed that the start date for this position should be adjusted to the standard start date of October 1st, 2023 that is typically used for new positions. Accordingly, fiscal staff recommends a technical adjustment to adjust this position start date to October 1st, 2023, and to align the authority in the amounts included in this companion decision unit in the Fund for Resilient Nevada budget. Inclusive of this technical adjustment, the revised total cost of the biostatistician position is $84,983 in fiscal year 24 and $112,794 in fiscal year 25. And the agency and the governor's finance office concur with this proposed technical adjustment. Does the subcommittee wish to recommend approval of one new biostatistician position to support the statewide opioid epidemic response, funded with the transfer of opioid settlement funds from the Fund for Resilient Nevada in the amount of $84,983 in fiscal year 24 and $112,794 fiscal year 25, inclusive of that noted technical adjustment to align the position start date to October 1st, 2023.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Nichols. Do we have any questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I'd so move to accept the recommendations as read by staff.
In a second. Thank you. I have a motion from Senator Nguyen and a second from Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno. Any comments or questions on the motion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Okay, motion carries. Okay, moving on to other closing items.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, Colby Nichols, LCB Fiscal Analysis. There are 4 other closing items associated with this account. They're included in a table on page 30. Fiscal staff would recommend that all other closing items for this budget be closed as recommended by the governor and request authority to make technical adjustments as necessary.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions on the closing items? Okay, seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve the recommendations as read by staff.
Okay, I have a motion from Senator Nguyen, a second from Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Okay, motion carries. Moving on to Patient Protection Commission, Budget 3055.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, Colby Nichols, LCB Fiscal Analysis Division. That concludes the budgets that were previously heard. The remaining budgets are staff closures. I'd just like to note that as is done with the other budget closings, the closing recommendations for the budgets recommended for staff closure are all included on the summary page of the closing packet. I'll briefly go through the staff closing budgets and pause briefly in case there's any questions, but the motion will be done at the end of the staff closing budgets for all the staff closed budgets. The first of which is the Patient Protection Commission. That begins on page 33 of your packet. Fiscal staff is responsible for developing closing recommendations, and the subcommittee has not previously reviewed this budget. This is the budget for the support and other associated costs for the Patient Protection Commission. There are no major closing issues and 2 other closing items.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Seeing none, we'll move on.
The second budget recommended for staff closure is developmental disabilities. That's on page 35 of your closing packet. This budget supports the Governor's Council on Developmental Disabilities in providing grants to the community, conducting analyses of disability services and provider systems, and identifying filling gaps in service delivery to persons with disabilities. There are no major closing issues and 2 other closing items associated with this account.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Seeing none, moving on to family planning.
Thank you. The family planning budget is included on page 37, or begins on page 37 of the closing packet. The family planning budget, money in this account is expended to award grants to local government entities and nonprofit organizations to provide family planning services. There are no major closing issues. There are 2 other closing items. I would just briefly note other closing item 2 is the recommendation to transfer this budget from the Director's Office to the Division of Public and Behavioral Health to align that budget within DPBH, which administers several other programs with similar demographics. And I would just note that there are no changes to program scope, activities, or funding that are related to the recommended transfer. This is an organizational change.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions on this budget? Seeing none, we will move on to 3199 Grief Support Trust Account.
Thank you again. This is Colby Nichols with LCB Fiscal Analysis Division. Discussion of the Grief Support Trust Account begins on page 39 of your closing packet. This account supports nonprofit community organizations that provide grief support services to children who have experienced the loss of a relative or other person with whom they've had a significant emotional relationship. There are no major closing issues or other closing items associated with this budget.
Thank you very much. Any questions on this budget? Okay, seeing none, we will move on to 3276.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, this is Colby Nichols for the record. The final staff closed budget is the Individuals with Disability Education Part C budget, which begins on page 41. This is the office that serves as the designated lead agency for Nevada Early Intervention Services. There are no major closing issues associated with this account. There are 8 other closing items which are included on the table on page 41. And that concludes my summary for this budget.
Thank you very much. Any questions or comments on this budget? Okay, seeing none, I will entertain a motion.
At this time, I will make a motion to close the following budgets as recommended by the governor and request and give authority to staff to make any technical adjustments as necessary. And those budgets are 101-3055, 101-3154, 101-3155, 101-3199, and 101-3276.
Thank you. I have a motion from Senator Nguyen, a second from Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno. Any questions or comments on the motion? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Okay, motion carries. Thank you very much. We will now close the budgets. We will now move on to the next item on our agenda, which is public comment. If you would like to call in to provide public comment, the phone number is 888-475-4499. When prompted to provide meeting ID, enter 848-117-22145 and then press a pound sign. Each person for public comment has 2 minutes. Would someone like to come up to the table in Carson City? I see a group. Would someone like to come up and introduce your group? Make sure you push the microphone button to speak and slowly state and spell your name for the record. And you may begin when ready. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jackie Tonoff, Jackietonooff, and I am a 7th-year special education teacher in Washoe County. The last 5 years, I have worked at Trainer Middle School. I had the pleasure to be here last Thursday and meet with many of you in regards to Time for 20. Afterwards, when debriefing with my colleagues, I had this fear in the back of my head that a lot of what we are advocating for was received as teachers just complaining. When we are asking for salary increases of 20% for all staff, we're saying we want more money for ourselves. When we are advocating for average class sizes of 20 students, what is heard is that our job is too difficult. Let's be clear that no teacher has gone into this profession thinking that, one, the job would be easy or that we would be rich. Excuse me. But we are advocating for more than just ourselves. We are advocating for our students, and I have some of them here today, and I'm very excited to hear them speak. But before they do, I just want to emphasize that we are advocating for them. They deserve so much more than what the state of Nevada is giving them right now. They deserve experienced, qualified educators, and salary increases would allow us to provide competitive wages, bring new teachers. They deserve to sit in a classroom where they don't have to fight 20 other kids, 30 other kids for a teacher's attention. These kids deserve the best of you. They deserve your support. They deserve to have you as their advocates. And Time for 20 is about investing in their educational experiences and their futures. And the right choice in this matter is so clear, but we need your voices to make this change happen. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Hey. Do we have somebody else in Carson? Okay. Thank you. Please begin when ready. I think you need to turn your microphone on.
Thanks.
And please state and spell your name for the record.
My name is Madison Freitas. I'm an 8th grade math teacher at Trainer Middle School in Washoe County School District. I'm here to introduce our wonderful 8th grade students who are here to advocate for themselves and students across the state of Nevada. Students were given a short presentation on school finance and then asked to respond to writing prompts. They were given feedback regarding grammar and mechanics, but little else. What you will hear are their words. As educators, we try to instill that as Americans, our voices matter, and that if we speak up, we do have the power to influence policy and enact change. These students are future voters, future taxpayers, and the future of our great state of Nevada. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Okay. Please push the microphone button when you're ready and state and spell your name for the record.
Hello.
The microphone button. It's right in front. There you go. Okay, thank you.
Hello, my name is Isela, Isela. I'm an 8th grader in Washoe County. To be frank, there's a lot that I would want to change about my education. For example, in my experience, the class sizes are ridiculous. Professionals believe that the average middle school class size should include between 13 to 18 students, but class sizes are out of control, with some teachers having to look over 30 students at a time. Having this many students, it is extremely hard for every student to get the attention they need and deserve. For instance, in my 4th grade classroom, there were about 32 students. The overcrowding got to the point where my parents, they wanted to take me away from my friends and my schools because they were worried that I wouldn't receive a proper education because of the number of students in my classroom. But then my parents, they found out that the other schools in my districts were just as bad. The ridiculous class sizes have not changed since then. Currently, all my classes have between 20 and 30 students in each of them. But class sizes are not the only issue. When our teachers leave, this affects our education. I also have firsthand experience with this, and I can confidently say that when the substitutes stand in, the students do not learn. Like, if you asked me about anything I was supposed to learn last year in my science, I wouldn't have an answer. My teacher left after a month into the school year, and we had dozens of substitutes, and our other teachers, they had to cover our classes. It wasn't until about the last 2 months of the school year that we had finally gotten a certified science teacher. By then, our class had fallen way behind. These are the two main issues I wanted to address today, but I wanted to mention the fact that schools in my district aren't treated the same, and it's horrible to witness. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Please go ahead when ready.
My name is Ashley. I'm part of the Washoe County School District, and the money from the rainy day fund should be put into educational funding because all middle schools in our town are not equal. As an athlete, I've been traveling to most middle schools in our town as well as comparing them to my school that I'm currently attending. By the looks of it, most schools have good plumbing and the right amount of teachers. In our school, we lack warm water while other schools have it. According to the United States Development of Labor, restrooms must provide hot and cold running water or lukewarm water. Most students complain that the water is too cold and barely wash their hands well. This is a health hazard towards students because due to them not washing their hands for proper hygiene, it increases the risk of flu and other illnesses spreading. Moving forward, other schools have teachers and staff in their building to educate their students while we're losing teachers. Due to the lack of teachers, the number of students in each classroom increases. According to the blog Friends Central, a normal class size should have no more than 18 students per class. We have about 20 to 25 and some teachers have more per class. Having students inside one classroom can cause chaos. Everyone talking and being loud, students around the classroom that needs help, but the teacher can't get to them at times. If we had more teachers, we would have fewer students per class, which would affect the learning environment. Students would be quieter, teachers can help other students faster, and teachers won't stress out as much. In the beginning of the year, I wanted to join orchestra, but the teacher was no longer there. I know many 6th graders that just joined our school was longing to practice an instrument in orchestra, and they can no longer to do what they're passionate about. This is not fair towards us because other schools get to have things we no longer have. Students should be able to do what they're passionate about and learn new things. Losing teachers also means less electives for students to discover and join next year. I heard that next year we might not have home economics, STEM, robotics, forensics due to the loss of teachers. With help from you and the right funding, we can keep those things as well as improving our building and getting more teachers for our school. Thank you.
Thank you. Next person, please.
Hi, my name is Hannah, and I'm an 8th grader in Washoe County. All middle schools in town are not equal. The reason for this is because Some of the schools have more funds that could go to the students' academics than others might not have. Schools that have little to no benefits, such as having no electives, no preparation for growing, and more, can really pull a student down from doing what they thrive on. Head Starts in middle school can really help the students understand themselves and what they like better. Since we are missing out on great opportunities, it is unfair for us. We could be having new technologies that are useful tools, but Washoe County students are almost $4,000 short of the national per pupil. Location or the reputation of the school, they get different treatment. Schools in more ideal areas offer a great variety of activities. They get better materials for school, more attention, and more fundings for more departments. Schools in less ideal areas are giving less opportunities like that.
Thank you very much. Please go ahead when ready.
My name is Yasmin, and I go to school in Washoe Schools District. And if my favorite teacher left in the middle of the school year, I would be sad because most of the times you form a bond with most teachers, and it would just make you very sad because most of the teachers really try to get attached, not get attached to students, but they get really nice with teachers. Students get really nice with teachers, and most times they get really friendly, and students really like being friends with teachers because most times they really do give them really good advice, but when they leave in the middle of the year, it's very sad to just see them leave. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any more public comment in Carson City? Okay, seeing none, we'll go to Las Vegas. Oops, do we have one? Okay. Please state and spell your name, and you may begin when ready.
Good morning, Chelsea Gray, CHELSEYGRAY. My husband and I own 3 nursing homes in northern Nevada. We live in Reno and employ over 420 Nevadans. I'm here today to ask for a 45% Medicaid rate increase for nursing homes. The associated dollar amount with this request is about $13.5 million annually. Here's why you should do it. Most of you have likely heard that Nevada nursing homes did very well in responding to COVID-19, having some of the lowest death rates in the country. But our success was not without blood, sweat, and tears. I had my mother sew 300 masks in a matter of a weekend that she shipped to Reno so our staff and residents could be protected from this uncharted illness. We made plans to set up daycare on site if it got so bad our employees had to bring their children to work. We took our clothes off in garages so as not to expose our families. I know you've read and heard about these stories, but we are the ones that lived it. We lived it every day for 19 months, and in some way we are still living it. Generally, we were thought of as second to hospitals, never receiving free meals or support from the community, just angry families. Our vaccine clinics and supplies came weeks after the hospitals. We interpreted new CMS guidelines day after day, all while state surveyors came into our buildings and cited us for failing to have interpreted the guidelines the way they wanted us to. Yet we persevered, because people who choose to work in a nursing home are a different type of employee. They are selfless, compassionate, patient, and don't care what others think. I am begging you to think about those employees and residents who have suffered arguably more than any other industry during the pandemic and increased the budget by 45%. The proposed increase of 5% is not enough. Our food, nursing supplies, and labor have all increased at least 40%. Our seniors deserve better. We are talking about your parents, your grandparents, your friends. When someone breaks a hip or suffers from a heart attack or stroke, it takes 2 people and a tremendous amount of rehab to get them back to baseline. That's what we do. We do it so families can still work, so people can continue to run their businesses, so tremendous sacrifices don't have to be made by the thousands of families who use our services annually. Please, we have suffered enough. We are proud of our services, but we can't afford it much longer. It's not sustainable without additional funds. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, seeing no more public comment in Carson City. Wait, do we have more? Okay, please state and spell your name when ready. You can start when you're ready.
Good morning. My name is Ashley, ASHLEY. I am an 8th grader at Washoe School County, and I do not believe all middle schools are equal. According to the U.S. News and World Report at our school in Nevada, our school is ranked number 156 in education in Nevada. This means that there are 155 other students and schools who are getting better education than we are. This is unfair. As a student, I believe that all schools and all students should be receiving the same and equal education. Not only are we being cheated out of having the same and equal education as everyone else, but there are also schools ranked lower than us with less education, getting worse education than we are. At my school, our school and students are labeled as ghetto. Think about that for a second, please. Everyone at my school deserves more than to be labeled just a labeled as ghetto or just a number. We deserve to have the same education as everyone else. I believe that with your guys' help and support and the right funding, that our school and our students and everyone else in this state of Nevada can receive better education that we all deserve. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead when you're ready.
My name is John, John, and I am an 8th grader in Washoe County. In Reno and Sparks, all middle schools are not even treated equally. For example, not all the schools are getting old, and necessary needs such as air conditioning or heat are also getting old, in which a few schools are getting new ones, or in this case, having to exchange them. Excuse me, having to exchange them from another school. However, do the schools that exchanged their heaters have brand new ones? It isn't fair to give out old heaters to other schools since they'll just get older and even more. Students' needs are at stake here, but that's not all. Additionally, students and teachers at their school are not comfortably safe. There is some awareness you could really do to help them, make them feel encouraged to be safe at their schools. Fights happen and threats happen, and they'll keep spreading around other schools due to influence. Do something worthwhile to keep the district a safe and happy place where every student and teachers feel safe. Lastly, there is going to be an insanely big size for classrooms here. Some teachers are forced to be laid off from the school, and no fun-elective classrooms are held because of that. It will be a very unsecured classroom where a single teacher will suffer from 20 to 40 students in a classroom, and raise the funds so all these problems can fade away. There is and will make a huge difference in the future if you do. You can do it. Thank you.
Thank you. Please begin when ready.
My name is Alyssa, Alyssa, and I am an 8th grader. I am an 8th grader in Washoe County. If one of my favorite teachers left in the middle of the school year, I would be sad because 3,000 public schools teachers get paid $42.775 in Nevada, and in other states they get paid more. In the whole, it's not fair how teachers must quit and get other jobs just because of that. It's unfair how it happens a lot. Plus, teachers leave, then we won't be successful learners and we won't get jobs or any good at anything at all. It would be really sad to see if any of the teachers leaving just because of no money. I believe all other schools will agree with me when I say that we need the money to keep the teachers and students keeping the teachers and having a job of their dream job. Students may be heartbroken by teachers leaving for this reason. Schools in need of it. It's not fair how other schools have more money than some other schools. Plus, teachers are trying to tell you that they need the money for their kids and students for their school, and you're not even listening to them. It's very unfair how you're not listening to the teachers. So we kids of Washoe schools will stand up for the kids and the teachers who were forced to leave the schools that they loved and care for. So I'll give you a reason to give the money to schools in need, and you never even once cared about the kids and the teachers who have to leave because of this. That's also why we need to have the money. We understand that there are other areas to spend money on, but why spend it on the kids who want jobs and families someday? Why not us? Why not the kids of Washoe schools? Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to move on to Las Vegas for public comment. Seeing none. Broadcasting, is there anyone on the telephone for public comment?
Chair, the line is open and working, but there are no callers at this time.
Thank you very much. With that, I'm going to close public comment, but I believe we have some comments from some committee members. I will go first to Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and to all the students that are here today. I know you had to sit through a very boring meeting. I'm sorry about that. But I want you to know you're extremely impressive with your dialogue to us here today, and your voices have not gone unheard. I just wanted to say that as a body and as a mother of an educator, we love our teachers, and we wouldn't be in the seats that we are in if it hadn't been for some amazing educators that helped us get here. And for that reason, I think it's important for you to know that this legislative session, as in the past legislative session, we put unprecedented amounts into education, and we have scheduled just over $2.2 billion going into education this upcoming biennium. We had our superintendents from every school district here to present in the last 2 weeks, and I was very impressed with the superintendent from Washoe County when she presented her proposals for what those increases that she hopes to do for the educators in your school district. So please know that what you've said here today, we've heard you, what we have heard from the educators, we've listened. We have a limited amount of money, but education is the first thing that we fund in this state, and you do matter. So thank you for being here. One more thing. If I could ask Ms. Johnson, Ms. Stacy Johnson, to step up. Good morning.
Good morning.
Members, I don't know if you know, but you've seen Ms. Johnson in this building for years and years and years. As a matter of fact, 32 years of service with the state of Nevada. And before that, it was 7 years with Lincoln County. She has lived a life of service since she graduated high school. And unfortunately, she will be leaving us to join the life of retirement come Friday. So I just wanted to personally thank you for everything you've done to help this legislative body, everything you've done for the state of Nevada and the constituents throughout the state. We appreciate you. You do deserve this retirement. We will miss you. The department will miss you, but I just wanted to say thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Very welcome, and congratulations on your retirement. I hope you enjoy it. Okay, any other comments from the committee? Okay, seeing none, we will go ahead and close this meeting. Be good to everyone out there, and this meeting is now adjourned, so thank you.